Hi everybody, welcome to another episode of Best of British Blackwell. Today we're going to be making one of my absolute favourites. I'm going to be making a beef curry. Now I've not made one of these on my channel before, but I am quite renowned for making a lovely curry, and this one is no exception. Now I'm going to be using again some of the produce sent to me by Lamb to You, details down here at the moment. You still get 15% off your first order when you use the code Best of British. Today I'm going to be using some of their Hereford diced beef, so lovely beef curry on the way. This is going to be a very simple basic slow cooker recipe, so there's a little bit of preparation and the rest of it is just dumping it in a pot and leaving it. So a really quick recipe for you today, but still very tasty. Come over and have a look at the ingredients and let's make a start. So obviously the absolute star of the dish is going to be this Hereford diced beef that we've got from Lamb to You. Each of these packets comes at around about 400 grams. So I have got about 1.2 kilos there. That's the beef. I've also got an onion and a leek. I always like to use leek in my curries. I find that it adds a lovely bit of sweetness. I've got a red pepper. That really adds a lovely bit of colour and another texture. And now let's go on to some of the spices. I've got some ground coriander. I've got some ground cumin. I've got some easy garlic. I've got some easy ginger. I've also got a medium curry mix and a tandoori masala. And I've got a tin of chopped tomatoes. And I've got some coconut milk. First thing we're going to do is dice up our veg and fry that off. Then we're going to marinate this meat and get a bit of colour on it. Let me show you that. Okay, so when it comes to the veg for this curry and the onions and vegetables and so on, the trick is with a slow cooker recipe is not to go too thin. Leave your veg quite chunky. So the leeks I'm just going to leave like that. Normally if I was making a curry in a saucepan, I'd chop these onions, I'd dice them really thin. But you don't want to go too thin because it's going to cook for a long time, this curry, and you want the vegetables and the onions and peppers and so on to retain some bite and texture. And you won't get that if you dice them too thin. So again, nice and rough. That's perfect. Same with the peppers. You want to be able to see them in the curry. If you dice them too thin, they'll just disintegrate. So just a rough chop, and that's perfect. What we're going to do with these next is take them over to the pan and soften them down a bit first before we put them into the slow cooker pot. Okay, so let's have a nice look at this beef. I'm really quite impressed actually. These are nice lean chunks of meat. And they have got a decent little bit of marbling of fat in there as well, which is always going to be good because where there's fat, there's flavour. But actually every single one of these is really decent size, quite meaty, looks really good. I think it's going to be perfect for this dish. So let's get some seasoning in here, and you know, there's no better way of doing this than just getting your hands in. So first of all, let's get some salt. Plenty of salt. Good old crack of pepper too. Now let's go in with our cumin. And let's also get some coriander in there. This is ground coriander. You can grind up some coriander seeds if you want to, not a problem. Let's get that in there. Keep your spices out because we are going to be adding more spices. This is just a quick marinade for this meat before we brown it off. Get some of your curry powder in there and some of the tandoori masala. Beautiful. Now you could stir that around with a spoon if you wanted to, but I find the easiest thing to do, just get your hands in there and work it all in. And then once you've turned it all over once or twice, you can actually determine whether or not you think you need any more. But actually, just for the purposes of marinating this meat and getting it ready to brown off, that's absolutely perfect. That's what we'll do next. Okay, so our onions, peppers and leeks have finished softening and I've put them in the slow cooker. I'm going to add a tiny little bit more mustard oil into this pan, and you'll notice that when I was marinating the meat I didn't actually put the garlic and ginger in yet. I'm going to do that now. So in there we've got a teaspoon of the lazy ginger, And we go with a teaspoon of the lazy garlic as well. The reason that we put this in the pan separate is what you need to do is fry this in a little oil just to get it to release some of its flavours. If you put it in there raw, you're not guaranteed to cook that through and it can become quite bitter. So just let this sit in the pan and brown a little bit, then we're going to add our meat. So the garlic and the ginger is starting to release a lovely bit of flavour, lovely aroma. Now it's time to get our beef in here. To be honest with you, what I probably should have done here is batch cooked it, you know, half and half. But considering this is going to go into a slow cooker and receive a really long slow cook, I think that's absolutely fine. I'm just going to ramp the heat up a little bit so it really starts to brown off, and then we're going to combine everything in our slow cooker. So we're back over at the slow cooker, and as you can see, we've got our beautiful veg in there. It's at this stage here that I'm going to add some more ground cumin. It's probably about a teaspoon in there. Some more coriander. Now the reason that we're doing this is when you fry that meat off that's been marinating in this, you'll find that you lose quite a bit of the seasoning that you've put in there. Keep all these spices out, because as this cook continues, we're going to be tasting this for flavour. And you might find that it needs a little bit more of something, so just keep it out. Back in with the tandoori masala. And back in with the mild curry powder. Now you'll see, we haven't put a ton of chilies in here yet. We're not going to. It's all, curries should be well spiced and not well spicy. You know, you can add that heat right at the end if you want, with some Scotch bonnets or some bird's eye chilies. If you like it hot, put those chilies in at the end. If you put them in at the beginning of this cook, they're going to go bitter, and you're going to get a bitter heat, and all it's going to be is painful in your mouth. Where if you want a nice bit of sharp heat, put the chilies in at the end. So we've gone in with our spices there. Now we've got a tin of chopped tomatoes. You can use fresh tomatoes in here. I don't mind, but I use the chopped tomatoes, just as good for me. Whole tin of tomatoes in there. We'll give this a little bit of a stir, then we're going to introduce the meat. Okay, so our beef is pretty much sealed all the way through. And I know it's done when it's starting to release a lot of juices. I don't want it to go any further than that, but what I do want to do is capture those juices in this slow cooker crock pot. Get those right in there. And also go around with your spoon and make sure you take off all of those bits of garlic and ginger and get those in there. They've released a lot of flavour and they're going to continue to do so. Put the pan to one side. Now what we want to do is just kind of stir it all in. Get the veg, the tomatoes, the beef all completely covered and thoroughly mixed. Now you've got everything mixed together, all we're going to do is add just a little bit of water. Not too much. There we go, about 200 mils of water. Put the lid on, put this slow cooker on low, leave it for about 4 or 5 hours. We'll come back to this in 4 or 5 hours time. We'll start to taste, we'll start to see what flavours it needs, and we'll start to add, but just leave this now. Okay, so we are 4 hours into this cook now, and as you can see, this is going absolutely beautiful. Our veg, like our onions and our leeks and so on, haven't broken down completely yet. That's absolutely fine, don't mind that at all. And the beef is, just starting to cook through. Let's see if we can... There you go. So our beef is starting to cook through nicely as well. Now it's time to give this a little bit of a taste. Beautiful flavours, but what it needs is a little bit of sweetening. So, for example, we've put in there tinned tomatoes, which can be relatively acidic, and there's quite a bit of bitterness in there with the powders that we've used, like the cumin and the coriander and the curry powders. My trick for beef curry is to use a little bit of tomato ketchup in there. Tomato ketchup is very, very sweet. There's quite a lot of sugar in it. And this beats putting in actual, sweetener or sugar. And it obviously retains the same kind of tomatoey tang as well. So what we're going to do with this now is give it a stir after we've put our ketchup in. And then we are going to leave it for another 2 or 3 hours on the high setting on our slow cooker. And then when we're ready to serve it, at the very last minute we'll add a little bit of coconut milk in there just to kind of sweeten it up a little bit more. But it's going really well, and as you can see, the sauce is thickening beautifully. Okay, so here we go, we're ready to serve. We've got a beautiful mushroom rice here. It's a bit of pilau rice with some fried mushrooms and a few peas in there for a little bit of colour. I'm serving this up with some lamb samosas and some shop-bought naan bread. Bear in mind, this is a really quick dish. This is something that you throw in the slow cooker in the morning, go off to work, and you come back home and you serve this up for yourself. And what we're going to do here is take a couple of spoonfuls of this beautiful beef curry. Here it comes, look at that. That is absolutely superb. You can feel the meat just falling apart on the spoon there. It's sat in this slow cooker pretty much all day. It's going to be an absolutely beautiful treat for you. Like I said, we're just using that Hereford beef, diced beef that Lamb to You sent us. Details again below. Final thing that I'm going to serve this up with is just some mint raita here. Let's give this a try. Okay, so everything you're expecting from a beautiful beef curry is delivered there, because you've got succulent beef, you've got really tangy spices coming through there. Because you've cooked it for a long time, all of those spices have cooked out, so they're not bitter, they're not too sweet, you know, everything about it is absolutely beautiful. Could you thicken that sauce up? Absolutely, you know. It's not going to be your standard kind of curry house style curry. What it's going to be is beautifully cooked, lovely and succulent, and just a really good filling meal that you could set up at 8 o'clock in the morning and eat at 8 o'clock at night. The beef in there is the absolute star. You know, don't think for a minute that when you order a beef curry from your local curry house, it hasn't been cooked for a very long time beforehand. They don't cook that kind of thing to order. The reason that the beef is so succulent is because it's been cooked a very long time. Low and slow is always the way. Beautiful dish, absolutely lovely, really easy to make. Check out the details below of where you can get some of this beef from, and I'll see you again next time.